I'd like to call the meeting to order. Let's see. Chris, can you do the roll call, please?
Mr. Campbell?
Yeah.
Mr. Longest? Mr. Brown? Mr. Hodges?
Here.
Mr. Holderide?
Present.
Mr. Pierce?
Here.
Ms. Barber? Here. Ms. Williams? Here. Chairman Wright?
Here, present. Okay, so let's see. We need to review and adopt the meeting agenda. Have a motion.
So move, make a motion to adopt the meeting agenda.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There it is. All right. I'd like to welcome Sarah Williams and Tiffany Barber. We're fortunate to have you all, and excited you're willing to join us and try to make some things happen. Excited about that. Let's see. We need to approve the March 9th meeting minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I have one comment. I was out of town that night. Y'all did show me coming in via Zoom, and I was 1 hour behind. I got mixed up on my time. That was why I was 15 minutes late, but it had me absent. But I like to say present via Zoom. Did you see that, Chris? Right in the first page of the minute, absent, but put the present via Zoom. I think somebody can answer through and see what he did that. I really would. If that's all right.
Okay.
Small correction.
Okay. With that correction, noted.
Move that we accept the minutes amended by Mr. Campbell.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, let's see. This evening, we've got several presentations, the first of which is from the Economic Development Partnership. This presentation is by Zoom. Jason Kobe, am I pronouncing that correctly? Kobe?
Kubi.
Kobe, okay. Well, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your presentation.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members. Great to be with you all tonight. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can get
Okay. A little bit of feedback, you said?
the volume.
Okay. Well, I'll try to speak up. Let me see. Is that okay? Let me
That's fine. That's better.
let me just see if I can share this presentation with you all. Okay. Can you see that all right?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Well, I have been asked to really just provide an overview of economic development in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Once again, great to be with y'all. Jason L. Kubi. I'm the CEO of the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, or VEDP, which is the state's economic development authority. And we work closely with economic developers across the Commonwealth, including Sherry Spring, who is with us tonight. I'm going to be talking to y'all. Sherry, of course, helps to provide coordination for the entire region that y'all are in, as well as helping to provide some local economic development leadership as well. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So starting with kind of an overview of the different things that the Virginia Economic Development Partnership does at the state level. And these are obviously things that we're doing on behalf of the Commonwealth of Virginia to encourage growth in jobs and in wages and in capital investment across the entire Commonwealth. And we do these activities in close coordination with many different partners, but these are some of the biggest things that we do at the state level that are intended to support the success of communities across the Commonwealth. So just starting from the top, you guys know that we are probably most commonly known for marketing the Commonwealth, telling the story of Virginia's business climate and our attractiveness to business decision makers across the country and around the world. We also take the lead for the Commonwealth in recruiting out-of-state firms to the Commonwealth. One thing that is actually the majority of our business investment activity, but doesn't get quite as much coverage by the media, is the work we do to encourage the retention and expansion of existing Virginia firms. Doesn't get as much media coverage, but it turns out that about 2/3 of the projects we work are actually expansions of existing Virginia companies. We also have a trade development team that works with more than 300 Virginia businesses every year, helping existing Virginia businesses sell their products and services, goods and services, to international markets around the world. A big part of our role is just providing coordination among the different partners in the economic development community. This is a team sport, and we're all in it together. We also have a significant policy focus. We do a lot of research, and we make recommendations on things that will strengthen Virginia's economic development policies and strategies and programs. And so we're always looking for ways to make Virginia more competitive and to improve our business operating environment. We've also got a research team that does a lot of analysis and that supports our project managers when they're working with companies. We also administer a number of performance-based economic development incentives. We have a number of programs that are designed to provide workforce solutions to companies that are expanding in Virginia or those that are looking to locate here. And one of the biggest areas that we have put additional attention very recently is in working with localities across the Commonwealth to prepare project-ready sites, particularly sites that are suitable for advanced manufacturing, distribution and logistics, and other industrial projects. So that's kind of an overview. And again, we do this in collaboration with a large number of partners at the state level, at the regional level, and at the local level. One of the things that you should know about VEDP is we are focused on a number of different types of industry sectors in terms of how we articulate Virginia's value proposition, how we focus our marketing efforts. And the reason that we're focused on a number of different sectors is in part because we want to maximize job creation, but we also know that not every community and not every region of the Commonwealth is the same. And we want to have a portfolio approach where the totality of the portfolio represents something that is attractive for each region of the Commonwealth, where each region of the Commonwealth has an opportunity to align with the state's efforts. And you can see some of these sectors would be, ones that would tend to gravitate towards large metropolitan areas, particularly things like headquarters, to some degree business process services, but not totally, life sciences, and other sectors that are more suited for more smaller metros or rural regions. Think about things like wood products, supply chain management, food and beverage processing. Obviously, some of these things could work in multiple regions when you think about data centers, advanced materials, and so forth. So it's a portfolio approach intended to serve the entire Commonwealth. And this is a chart that you guys probably can't see too well, but I don't know that you really need to. The most important thing here is to recognize, and let me just tell you what this chart shows, but it backs up the point that I was making a moment ago. This is basically, each of these bars represents different industry sectors. So like dark blue is manufacturing, the light blue is technology, the gray is headquarters and corporate services, the yellow is agribusiness, the orange is other. But basically the size of these bars, you can see they all total to 100%, is based on the number of new jobs that were announced over the last 5 years or so by each of the regions, major regions of Virginia. You can see that in some cases, certain sectors really dominate. You look at like the Eastern Shore, Greater Williamsburg, the I-81, I-87 crossroads, manufacturing is the overwhelming sector that is driving new job announcements. So, in some of these, 100% or nearly 100% of the jobs announced are in manufacturing. In other places, look down at Northern Virginia and Greater Fredericksburg towards the bottom, you see that manufacturing is a very small part of their pie, with other sectors representing a bigger share. So anyway, obviously this is intended to show that depending on which region you're in, you've got a different industry mix, a different competitive position. And so it really emphasizes the importance of the portfolio approach that I was describing earlier. We went through the process 5 years ago and did it again to refresh during the pandemic just a year or two ago, of developing and implementing a strategic plan for economic development of the Commonwealth. And when we did this for the first time 5 years ago, and when we did it again just a couple of years ago, that process affirmed 5 transformational goals for the Commonwealth. When we went around to different local and regional economic development partners, when we talked with folks at the state level, when we talked to business leaders and other stakeholders, these 5 goals were consistently embraced. The first, and these are really the 5 big goals that I'm personally focused on delivering against at the state level. These are the big 5 goals that are kind of my North Star that I try to align my activities against. The first one is robust state job growth. We want to position Virginia as one of the top economic growth leaders, particularly one of the top job growth leaders in America, not just in terms of number of jobs, but also in the quality of jobs. We're trying to position Virginia squarely in the top 10 states in America in percentage job growth, the number of jobs, but also in the growth in median earned income, which is kind of a measure of the quality of jobs that we're creating. So we want to be one of America's fastest growing states in percentage terms. But we also want to do that in a way where every region of Virginia participates, where every region wins. And what that means is we want to make sure that every region of Virginia is in positive territory from a job growth perspective. Doesn't mean everybody's going to grow in the same way. Doesn't mean that everybody's going to grow at the same rate. But if we can keep each region of Virginia in positive growth territory, what that means is that the citizens in each locality, the businesses that are located across Virginia, will have access to the benefits of that growth within reasonable commuting distance. Thirdly, we want to reclaim Virginia's leadership position as a best state for business. And what that means is that when we look across the national business climate rankings, on average, we want Virginia to be in the top 3. You guys know probably that we are very well positioned in certain business climate rankings. We're number 1 in the CNBC top states for business ranking, and that's great. And we like to hold that up and market that. But there are other rankings where we don't fare so well, and there are some business climate rankings where Virginia is outside the top 10 today. So we've made some progress, but we've got more work to do in that area. Fourth, we want to be America's top state EDO. We want to be the most impactful. We want to be the most effective state economic development organization in America, mostly so that we can better achieve those first 3 goals. And then finally, we want to do this in a way that's super collaborative. That's part of the reason why I'm happy to be joining you all tonight. We want to live up to our name. We want to put the P in VEDP. We want to make sure that we really nail that partnership part and treat this as the team sport it is, because if we collaborate well, we believe Virginia is going to do better and our communities are going to do better. We've made a lot of progress on all of these goals. I will tell you that I think we're largely on track with where we'd like to be on number 5. I think for all of the other 4 goals, we've made good positive progress, but we have more work to do. And in many cases, it's a matter of financial resources to fund the initiatives that we need to complete these lofty goals for the Commonwealth. And this kind of shows that. You can see, you can probably hear my kids at war in the other room, but you can see here that Virginia has improved in terms of its job growth forecast. When we started this process 5 years ago, we were forecasted to be the number 28 fastest growing state in America. We're more like number 20 today, which is better, but it's a long way from the top 10. In terms of each region of Virginia succeeding, we have improved here too. 5 years ago, only 4 regions of Virginia were expected to be in positive growth territory. When you look at the forecast today, it's more like 12 out of 19. So much better. But again, we've got some regions that are kind of on the line and some that are in negative territory. So we need to really keep the pedal to the metal. I told you the story on the rankings. We've done a number of things to become a stronger partner to communities across the Commonwealth as a state EDO, but we've got more work to do there. So that's kind of an update overall. In terms of our impact in a typical year, there's a lot of ways to measure this, but these are a few of the key ways. What you're looking at here are the FY21 numbers. So this is the last fiscal year. We typically announce somewhere between 10 and 15,000 direct jobs from VEDP assisted announcements. So you can see it was about just under 12,000 in FY21. Typically, there's about 100 project announcements across the Commonwealth. About 2/3 of those are expansions of existing firms. Roughly $5 billion in capital investment, and that international trade team that supports Virginia businesses in their international sales helps those firms generate north of $600 million per year in new international sales for the Commonwealth. That translates into about 6,000 trade-supported jobs. At any point in time, we're managing somewhere between 300 and 400 projects. Not all of these are in advanced stages. This is kind of at all stages, but you can see how they break down here in terms of industry sector. Roughly a little bit more than half of our projects are in the manufacturing sector, and you might wonder why that is. And the answer is that manufacturing projects tend to be very competitive, and they tend to, go through a process where they make a careful decision about which state to locate in. So they tend to be very competitive across state lines. One of the things that y'all know is that there are many strengths to Virginia's business climate, and many of these on the left-hand side are ones that y'all are familiar with. We are America's top state for talent. We've got terrific educational attainment, some really strong higher ed institutions, some good K through 12 schools. We've got a great, overall business climate, some really good infrastructure. We've got a number of attractive small sites, below average tax burdens for existing firms, a very diverse range of employers, some great workforce solutions, and so forth. So a lot of positives, but there are also some weaknesses that we really need to work on as a Commonwealth. Many of these weaknesses will impact your region in particular, not in particular, but will impact your region too. One is that the Commonwealth has a very meager inventory of market-ready large sites. If a company needs a site larger than 250 acres, we do not have a lot of good options to offer them, and we are seeing the huge opportunity cost of that. We've got a lot of catching up to do in terms of site development. Some parts of the Commonwealth have some real challenges in terms of site development because of the timeline and the cost associated with it. And particularly as you get out west, many of those challenges are topographical. We tend to have smaller incentive offerings than some of our closest competitors like North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. In some areas, we have insufficient access to industrial scale water and or natural gas. Some parts of Virginia have some pretty heavy M&T local tax burdens that represent a barrier to manufacturing investment. Also, similar to sites, the availability of mid-size and larger buildings has become a real challenge. I think in many cases, there is limited awareness of our assets and sites among business executives and site selection consultants. And that's principally because Virginia has not invested significantly in marketing itself for economic development over the years. The exception there is tourism, where we have a very robust marketing campaign. but we have not done as much to market the opportunity in Virginia in other sectors. We've got some, a regulatory system that's not totally optimized for predictability and speed. So those are just a few of the weaknesses that we are working to address. You guys might wonder about what kind of factors are considered in a typical site selection process. And the way that I would encourage y'all to think about this is kind of primary factors that tend to be considered on the front end of a project life cycle. And then you've got these secondary factors that really come into play towards the end of the deal that often make the difference between one state or another at the end of the competition. So in general, primary site selection factors, workforce issues, the quality, the availability, the cost of the target workforce is always going to be one of the top issues. It's typically the top issue. It's almost always in the top three. Proximity to key customers and suppliers, the availability of a real estate solution. I talked about sites earlier, the tax and regulatory climate, the infrastructure, the operating cost, quality of life factors. Those are some of the top things. And I'll mention one thing that economic developers have a lot of control over, and that's the accurate and thorough response to RFI and RFP requests. So those are some of the things that are really important early in the process. And then when you kind of get towards the final stages of a site selection process, some other factors become kind of the primary deciders typically, including the availability and quality of a customized recruitment and training solution, being able to demonstrate that the state and the community can be a strong partner in ensuring the project is going to have the workforce it needs. Incentives come into play here, including discretionary incentives, but also by right incentives. Permitting becomes a big issue, both at the state level and at the local level. Obviously, the personal preferences of executives matter here as well, as well as a few other factors. But that gives you kind of a flavor of what we tend to see. You might also wonder, what are some of the reasons why Virginia is not considered for certain projects, or when we are considered, why we lose projects? Well, there's a number of reasons why we are sometimes not considered. Sometimes it's because the company executives are unaware of Virginia's advantages for their industry. Again, that principally goes back to marketing. The challenge I talked about earlier, where we just haven't put a lot of effort there relative to our competitors historically. The incentives is one of the reasons. Sometimes companies will basically overlook Virginia because they believe that we're not going to be able to offer the substantial incentives. That's true particularly for very large scale advanced manufacturing projects. Also, in some cases, we'll get screened out for high state and local tax burdens on new investment. I mentioned earlier that we perform relatively well for existing firms, but when you talk about new investment, some other states have historically performed better than us. Also, if there's a potential shift in the policy environment, particularly something significant like right to work that came up a few years ago, that can be another reason. Now, when we are considered but are not selected, one of the most common reasons, in fact, the most common reason we end up losing manufacturing and other industrial projects is because we often lack a suitable site or building option. Availability of skilled workforce, typically in smaller regions, is a concern. And then this thing I mentioned before, much smaller incentive packages compared to our competitors, and that can be a deciding factor towards the end of the process. So wanted to just really kind of give you guys an overview and see what kind of questions you might have. And Mr. Chairman, not sure about process here, but I'll turn it back over to y'all and see if you want to take questions now or if you want to keep chugging through the agenda.
Yeah, no, I think we just open it up for questions.
Jason, do you hear me all right?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
I see all these facts and figures and what y'all are doing statewide, and problems in areas and problems in other areas, where some areas have advantages. Do y'all come into specific counties like King William and guide us, specifically just us, on what we need to do and what we have advantages, what we need to do to get into the competitive arena of attracting businesses here. You take the Northern Neck, you take Northern Virginia. I mean, do y'all come in and help localities like us out in the rural areas and really tell us what we need to do? Y'all do that?
Yeah, yes, sir. We're certainly willing to assist, and we do that, and we can do it in a number of ways. I will tell you, we really want to support the economic development goals of each locality and of each region. So, it really starts with a conversation about what y'all want to achieve, and I don't just mean y'all. I mean any locality, any region. And we do that through regular conversations with local economic developers across the Commonwealth and at the regional level, like Sherry. We also have invested a lot of energy into creating something that we call the Local and Regional Competitiveness Initiative. And it's basically a playbook that we make available to local and regional partners that basically outlines how they stack up against peer communities on the things that are important to economic development success. It's everything from budget and staffing to strategic planning to assets like sites. And so we can provide good information to y'all. And if y'all would like to do this, we could do a whole separate meeting where we provide some of that perspective to you guys, or separately. We can do it, formally or informally, whatever works best for y'all. In addition to kind of the general strategy and information on and kind of this playbook I was talking about, when it comes to cultivating economic development assets, like working on the development of a site or an industrial park, or figuring out how to unlock some kind of asset that you have in the area, we can really kind of dive in on those particular things and provide support, advice, coordination to try to ensure that you guys have our best thinking, but also so that we understand what y'all are trying to do, so that we can do whatever we need to do at the state level to support that. So I don't know if I answered your question, but the answer is yes. There's a number of things we can do, and a lot of it really starts with a discussion of what you guys are trying to achieve. And if you don't totally know what you're trying to achieve, we can go back to that playbook and talk about how some places have approached those kinds of fundamental questions.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking for a one-on-one, just come down and sit with us and sort of guide us what we need to do.
Yeah, yes, sir. We'd love to do that. And we've got a team that has really focused on the kind of information that I've described earlier, and that would be a good starting point if that would be helpful to y'all. And I should also, Sherry Spring is somebody I talk to frequently, and I know she's going to talk to y'all tonight. So I mean, I would just treat my answer to your question, sir, as kind of a half answer, because I'd want Sherry to give an answer to that as well. And she's got some real good ideas, and she's been a terrific partner to us too.
Okay, all right. I kind of think that's free, I assume.
Oh yeah, this is totally free. Yeah.
Yeah, just help us out to get us on the right street, so to speak, the right path.
Yes, sir. And I'll
sites that we have, potential sites, and analyze them and tell us what we need to do and how to market them.
I was just curious, in the new jobs figure that you had, what is the Virginia Growth Alliance and the Virginia E region?
Oh, let me go back to that slide. So want to make sure I'm on the slide that you're interested in. So I think it's this one. So actually, what I should do, let me pull up a different slide. This might take me a minute, but the answer to your question, the simple answer is those are the regional economic development organizations that support those different regions. And you're probably wondering where they are. And I'm gonna pull up a map that will help answer that question. Let me see if there's other questions while I pull this up, and I'll come back to that one.
Machinery and tools has come up in a couple of your, I won't call it barrier to entry, but you mentioned a few times. What are some ways that you've kind of gotten around that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Typically the way that the most direct way to get around it is some localities mitigate it directly by either kind of lowering their rate or eliminating it entirely for like the first few years of operation for a new manufacturer. So that's one way to do it. This other way is not as effective, but if it's a big concern, sometimes you can use some sort of a incentive grant either from the locality or the state or both to help kind of offset it, if you will, but it tends to not be a very effective way to do it because because the cost of the M&T tends to be more significant in many cases than the incentives that we're able to offer for the project. So there's not a good statewide answer. It really varies by locality.
Thank you. Yeah, and I work with a lot of manufacturing actually with our business, and I know Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, they're doing really fantastic right now, or they have been for years, because those are states that have small manufacturing, and then people move up into bigger buildings. The old building goes to a smaller manufacturer, and it just snowballs into just massive states with the resources to help them. In that sense, we do really great with agriculture here, because we've got the fertilizer companies, the machinery dealers. So we have all the supporting resources to help the farmers. That's how the Carolinas do really great with manufacturing. They have all the resources to help manufacturing.
Yeah, I would just affirm what you've said. I think one of the things that has really benefited North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia is that they've been all in on cultivating advanced manufacturing for many years now, and they've invested significantly in site development. They've aligned their tax and incentives policy around growth in the manufacturing sector. They've been aggressive on incentives. They've really marketed themselves, and they've done the other things that you just talked about. So you're absolutely right. There was that question earlier about what are some of these different groups, and so I don't know if y'all can see this very well, but what were the two groups that I think one was probably, was it Virginia's Gateway or Virginia's Growth Alliance? I forget.
Growth Alliance.
Growth Alliance. So you can see the Growth Alliance is number 6 here. And so you've got this kind of a lot of people call it the triangle, but you've got it's kind of not really south side, but it's kind of the eastern portion of south side. So that light blue that y'all can see here. And I think you also asked about the Industrial Advancement Alliance. Is that right?
The E region.
Oh, the E region. Okay, yeah, that's far southwest Virginia is the E region.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you'll also hear that called the coal field sometimes too. And I think they called themselves the E region in part because they were trying to say that they were more than coal. Yeah.
So I'd be interested to know more about the financing and the vehicles that are available, and if you all have ever worked directly with an EDA to finance a project.
We have, and we do it all the time, in part because most of our state incentives programs require a local match. So anytime we're using, well, I say anytime, most of the time when we're using a state economic development incentive, there's some kind of a local match requirement. So in that respect, a financial partnership around landing a project is a very common thing for us. I will also say that some of the tools that we have to put communities in a more competitive position, like the grant program that we have for site development, also involves a local match. So those kinds of funding partnerships are pretty common for us. Now, having said that, there's only so many tools that we have, but some of those tools are the ones that I just mentioned, and they involve a funding partnership.
And so the funding, when you say grant, I mean, it's just an outright grant. It's not cash flow dependent, or it's just a grant.
That's right. We have a number of grant programs, and those grant programs, in the vast majority of cases, and perhaps in every case, actually end up flowing through a locality. And I think that's an artifact of the state constitution or the code, because the Commonwealth can't give money directly to a business. So what we typically do is give those dollars to the locality, and that's how they get distributed to the business. But it's done as a partnership between the Commonwealth and the locality and the company. I'm not sure if that answered your question, but it is a grant program.
It's so interesting. And so what structure do you see EDAs using to go initiate a project? So, I mean, did they set up is it a nonprofit organization, or I mean, how are they structured?
And I think you're asking about the different EDAs and so
The structures that you've seen in terms of like getting to actually so you go buy a piece of property. What's the entity that's buying it? Is it?
Oh, I gotcha. There's a variety of answers. Well, there's a variety of approaches there. I mean, it's in many cases you have a local governing authority, which is often an EDA, that would own property. They would buy and manage and develop property. In some cases, they've done industrial buildings as well. So not just sites, but also putting basically shell buildings up. In other cases, you have private landowners that want to market their sites for economic development, and so there's mechanisms for the state and local governing authorities like y'all to work with private landowners. In other cases, particularly for sites that are very expensive to develop relative to local capacity, you'll have a RIFA agreement between two or more localities where those localities agree to invest jointly, and the RIFA agreement defines how the benefits of a project landing on the site would be distributed across the multiple localities. So there's a variety of mechanisms to do it. And if y'all, like the offer to spend some time with y'all separately, going through the playbook that I described, we could also spend some time looking at site development and answering questions and talking about different models and pointing y'all towards folks that have done it in different ways.
But we don't need a separate entity in order to hold land purchases. The EDA is capable of purchasing land and owning it as the EDA. We don't have to establish another organization or anything else.
Yeah. Is that a question that you're asking me, or are you kind of answering the question?
That was just a discussion.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That is a common approach for an EDA like you guys to do it yourselves.
I don't want to get too in the weeds, but I do have one more question, and that is how about operating entities and operating business? Have you all worked on any of those, to actually set up a plant or something that's
where we have financed the business ourselves?
Or created a co-op or something?
We have not done that, and that's I wouldn't say that that's never been done, but I'm not familiar with any places that have done that. I also wonder, there may have been something more akin to that on the sort of agricultural side. So, we cover a range of different industry sectors, but the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, or VDACS, tends to focus on, agriculture and forestry type enterprises. And so I would want to ask them that question too, because sometimes you'll see, cooperatives set up for the agricultural industry. So that might be something to explore for y'all.
So what's the next step? Is this, how do we get to the next step here?
I think when you meet at your retreat, we're gonna go over some priorities as to what you're looking to attract maybe to the county, where you think the best fits are. And then obviously VEDP is the partner in which we reach out to see if there's anybody interested in those kind of things. We're already doing some of that, but
Great. Thank you for setting this up.
sure,
This is
sure.
great.
One question, me, is there a certain period of time that grants are accepted, or do you have a rolling grant application period throughout the year?
Yeah, there is a certain period of time where grants are accepted. So, well, let me back up. We have a rolling application period throughout the year for what we call characterization grants. And those are relatively small dollar amounts. I think it's like on the order of $5,000 or so. And at any time during the year, we can make a characterization grant to a community that basically provides the basic resources to evaluate a site and to understand at a high level what is needed to move that site forward, as well as this kind of strengths and weaknesses of the site at a high level. So it's just kind of understanding broadly, what kind of condition this piece of land is from an economic development perspective, and it gives you the information you need to make smart decisions about developing the site. So, site characterization grants are something that we do throughout the year. We do have particular windows where we look at what we call site development grants, and those tend to be larger amounts that pay for more sophisticated services and soft costs, and occasionally hard costs for developing a site. And so when I say soft costs, I'm talking about basically engineering studies and so forth. And when I talk about hard costs, I'm talking about bigger dollars that typically involve moving earth. So we typically fund the engineering studies and the soft costs, and try to avoid making big investments in the hard costs. And there's a reason for that, and that is our goal typically is not to get a site. Well, let me say this differently. Our goal is to get a site to a point where if a business chooses the site, they can have confidence that one, it's a low risk site where they're not going to encounter big surprises along the way, particularly big bad surprises. So it's a low risk site, but also it's a site where from the time they choose the site, they can break ground on construction within 12 to 18 months. So what we're trying to do is provide sites that can go from decision to construction within 12 to 18 months in a very low risk way. And so typically what we find is that the hard costs that might be involved are hard costs that can be accomplished within that 12 to 18 month window if we have done all of the due diligence and done all of the soft costs on the front end before the business chooses the site. So those development grants that I described earlier typically will fund the engineering studies, and they'll fund the soft costs and get the site to a point where it is within that 12 to 18 month window, and has a low risk profile because all the due diligence has been done.
And then just to follow up on that, so within the grant process, is this by region or is it throughout the state? So you have a certain dollar amount that is allocated for all the grants and the entire state is open to it? Or do you look and focus grants to certain regions to ensure that all regions have an equal play at the table?
Yeah, it is well, I will say it's a process that historically has been a statewide, open application process. Having said that, we want to position every region of Virginia to win, and part of it is making sure that that we're doing what we can to develop sites that are appropriate for manufacturing and other industrial sectors across the Commonwealth. So it's an open statewide process, but it's one where we're trying to develop sites across the Commonwealth, and not concentrate the dollars in a particular region. So we want to have a good distribution. And we want to do it strategically. We want to invest in sites that have a high potential to attract a project, and we want to also use our limited dollars in ways that will have the biggest bang for the buck. And what I mean by that is that just given the nature of sites, some are much some sites are capable of being developed to that 12 to 18 months timeline in a much faster and cheaper way than others. And so we've got to kind of weigh those trade-offs, and we try to get the most bang for our buck, and we try to use those dollars strategically. So that's how it has worked in the past, and it's worked well. The biggest problem with what Virginia has done in the past is we have not invested enough in site development. We have really been scratching the surface of this problem. Virginia has invested very little over the last 10 years. It's only been relatively recently, like in the last few years, when we started investing in site development in any sort of significant way outside of the Tobacco Commission. Now, the Tobacco Commission is another story for the folks that are in that footprint. But for the rest of the Commonwealth, including you guys, it wasn't until very recently that we had $1 million per year to invest in this activity. That number has been bumped up. We had in our recent round about $7 million, but we're competing against states that have been investing tens of millions of dollars per year consistently. And we need to do that too if we're going to be successful. And so what the General Assembly is considering now is a one-time investment of $150 million in sites in this fund that I was talking about a second ago. And that's, I've been describing that to the General Assembly and to others as kind of a catch-up investment, given the fact that we have not invested significantly in the past. But we need to, even after that $150 million, assuming we get it, fingers crossed, we'll need to continue investing significantly in site development on an annual basis going forward. So the reason I explain all of that is because one of the things that I don't know yet is how much money is going to be in the budget that comes out of this special session that the General Assembly is currently in. And I also don't know exactly what kind of language is going to be around those items in the budget. And that language, could impact, this question of, is it a statewide thing or is it, sort of competitions within the regions? I expect, based on the conversation so far, that we will have an approach going forward that's similar to what we've seen in the past, where it's a statewide pool. But there has been some discussion about creating regional pools. So we'll see how that shakes out. But I think either way it shakes out, having significantly more money for site development is going to be good for everybody, because it's something that really has been a very limiting factor without a lot of support at the state level outside of the Tobacco Commission footprint historically.
Um, I've got one more. I know it, so you've got $7 million for soft costs, is that right?
Well, we had $7 million in the last grant cycle. So we have allocated those dollars already. We've committed those dollars. And so that was this past grant cycle. I am hopeful that we will have $150 million to invest in a combination of a few mega sites, which are sites that are larger than 250 acres, as well as mid-sized sites, which would be in the 100 to 250 acre range across the Commonwealth if we get that $150 million.
Are there grants, federal, state, available for hard costs?
Yes, although the hard costs will eat up those dollars, even big dollars, pretty fast. And in many cases, in fact, in most cases, the hard costs are not necessary to position a site within that 12 to 18 month window. So yes, hard costs are technically eligible, but they tend to be prohibitive and not always necessary. Cost prohibitive and not always necessary.
Just one last question. So the sites listed that are winning sites within the state, do you have a checklist of items that would make a site that we've seen consistently make that site a winning site? Like, do I have to have pad installed? Do I have to have infrastructure already there? What are the key elements required at a site less than 25 acres and greater than 250 acres that are required to make that a winning bid?
Yeah, we do have that information, and it would be, and I can talk a little bit about it tonight if y'all want to, but that would be something that would be worth a whole separate, kind of small meeting to go through the details together in person if y'all wanted to, really dig into this. So I would suggest that. But yeah, the answer is absolutely yes. We have a really good understanding of that, and can provide that kind of information.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Really interested in what you had to say, and appreciate your time, and thank you for setting this up.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks to all of you. Thanks for inviting me. We truly want to be a good partner to y'all. I'm excited to join y'all tonight, and appreciate the opportunity. And y'all know how to get in touch with me. And I'm talking with Sherry all the time. So let me know how we can help as y'all consider next steps.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's see. We've got Peninsula Alliance, Sherry Spring next. Hello, Sherry.
Good afternoon or good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to come and talk with you. First off, I want to let you know that I've been in economic development for like 27 years, and have worked closely from a local level with the VEDP, and Jason is just fantastic, and he and his predecessor Stephen Moray has just really brought the VEDP to 10 levels higher than what it was 6 or 7 years ago. So kudos to him, and he just has a wealth of information, and he's so energetic and so excited about the levels that he can take Virginia to in terms of economic development, and it's an exciting time to be in our shoes. And but anyway, I just want to give you a little bit of background about the Middle Peninsula Alliance. I think the Middle Peninsula Alliance started around 2017 or 2018. And I think from what I understood, the Middle Peninsula Planning District Commission had uncovered about $75,000 from a previous organization, a regional organization. And so anyway, they asked, I think it was 7 different localities, would you like to form a regional economic development agency? And so, yes, and it was my understanding, I think the 7 localities all contributed $5,000 each. And then Liz Povar, who maybe a lot of you know, she used to work at the VEDP, but she had left there and started her own consulting firm called Riverlink. And so Louis Lawrence knew Liz, and so asked her to come on and start this regional partnership. And she did, and Liz did an excellent job. And then August of 2020, at that time, I think the chairman of the Middle Peninsula Alliance was Ashley Crisco. And since Liz had decided that, you know, she wanted to go on and take on other clients and stuff like that with her consulting business, asked the county administrator for Gloucester County, and I'm the economic development director for Gloucester County, if I would be willing to volunteer to be the liaison between the VEDP and the Middle Peninsula Alliance. And I agreed to do it because I know a lot of people at the VEDP and have the utmost respect for them, and for the MPA. And so anyway, for about the last 1.5 years, I've provided leads from the VEDP. Again, I'm just a conduit. When I get a lead from the VEDP, it automatically goes out to all the localities and to the people that I've been directed to send them to. In your case, I send the leads to the county administrator and also the deputy county administrator. And I tell all the localities, respond back to the project manager yourself. I don't need to get this information and pass it on. I want the localities to have that interaction and be able to submit your buildings or sites. So, and then another thing is, once a month, we have a regional economic development meeting. And if there's attachments or pertinent information, then I automatically, again, forward it to each of the localities because, you know, this is all a regional effort. So, and I do make every effort to attend these meetings. But just to let you all know, I've had no conversations with the MPA board members, and I really don't know, you know, what the future is going to be for the Middle Peninsula Alliance, or if the localities are going to want to fund it. I certainly don't mind, because I've been doing this for so many years. I certainly don't mind being that liaison and volunteering to do it. But I will tell you that past experiences, I started my economic development career in Martinsville, Virginia, and I think we went through 2 regional partnerships, trying to form partnerships, and it didn't work. Martinsville and Danville didn't get along, and Pennsylvania County didn't get along, so we didn't trust each other. So it was kind of like it just blew up in its face. But I think now, after several years, about 5 years ago, they've formed one that's really strong. But you know, it's not for everybody, and regions are different. But you know, I'm still doing, you know, what I was asked to do, and I haven't heard anyone say that you know, they were unhappy with what I was doing. So that's kind of the role that I'm playing for you and for the other localities at this point.
Does anybody have questions or thoughts, comments? Well, how about working backwards? If we had an objective,
I'm sorry, that's my bill alarm. I can't cut it off. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
No, you're fine.
Liven things up a little bit. Yeah. So how about working it backwards? If we had an objective or target, might you be, would it make sense for us to sit down with you and talk about that? And maybe there's some things you've seen can help us get directed.
Like I said, I've got a lot of years experience, and you know, Martinsville used to be known as the textile and furniture capital of the world. So, you know, I know about building shell buildings. I know about developing sites. I know about purchasing land and building industrial parks. So I'd be more than happy to sit down and tell you what I know. What Jason just mentioned, I mean, I do know that there's a lot of things that companies look for first, especially manufacturing, if that's what you may want. You know, the big pluses are close proximity to an interstate, enterprise zone. I don't know if any of us have an enterprise zone here. Water, sewer, natural gas. I mean, these are all the things that, you know, that you got to have. And I know coming to Gloucester, before that I was in Hampton, and I've been in several other places, but you know, there's some things that, you know, that big companies are looking for that our region doesn't have. But at the same time, you know, we can sit down and talk about, you know, what do we want? What can we support? And go after those targeted industries. And no, I'm more than willing to, you know, do anything to help you and any other communities that I can. And it's unfortunate that, you know, if you really want a true regional partnership, then, you know, it may cost each of the localities, I don't know, $20,000, $30,000 each to hire a person, you know, to do the marketing, to go to the trade shows, to go on the call trips and this and that. So, you know, if I can help and it doesn't cost anybody anything, then, you know, I'm more than willing to share my experiences and what, you know, what I can.
Sure, have you seen much activity lately? I mean, what's out there? What have it got any people coming to the northern neck to this area looking, and a lot of people? What?
No, well, I guess the thing is, I mean, excuse me, I got a sinus thing going on. You've really got to have, and you know, I've fought with this with Gloucester, because Gloucester is probably the smallest community. I know it's the smallest community I've ever worked in, and I absolutely love, you know, this part of the, you know, the state. But I mean, you've got to have buildings, you've got to have sites, you've got to invest in an industrial park. And I know when I came to Gloucester 7 years ago, you know, I was going to change the world, and there was 400-acre farm next to our little business park that's 70 acres. And in that 70 acres, we've got a 5-acre tract, a 7-acre tract, and 4 1-acre tracts. Well, to me, and I've used this analogy, it's like having a grocery store with nothing on the shelf, because the projects from the VEDP are not looking for a 5-acre or 7-acre. They're looking for a 25-acre and up. And it's got to have the utilities and all the bells and whistles that I just mentioned. And Gloucester doesn't have that. So, you know, there was this 400-acre tract next door, and I was like, oh, we've got to have it. We've got to have it. And we got close to getting it. And then the property owner decided that, you know, the appraisal that we got, the EDA paid for, was, instead of being $8.2 million for the appraisal, he decided in the 11th hour that the property was worth 16.4 acres, $16.4 million, and blew that one. But then after time, I thought, well, we don't have natural gas, which is huge. We don't have natural gas, and we've got water and sewer, but water goes down one side of 17 and sewer goes down the other side of 17, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And we're not in an enterprise zone, so how are we going to offer incentives? So it was kind of a blessing in disguise, but I think we all have to decide what can we support? What do we want? What can we support? What type of workforce do we have? I mean, that's a big deal right now too, because and I just recently lost this one, but it was a catamaran manufacturer and was looking for, water. And it was a former seafood property that met his needs. And when he saw that, our unemployment rate was, I can't remember what it was now, it was like 3 point something, and we only had 500 some people unemployed. And this was a company out of Australia. They said, you don't have the labor force. So there's so many factors. So you kind of, and again, I'll be happy to sit down with anybody and just say, this is kind of like a checklist. Do we want to do aquaculture? Do we want to do agriculture? I do apologize for this. I think I've been inhaling too much pollen in the last couple of days, but there's so many factors on, who are we and what do we want to be and what can we support?
Right. Question. So if you've been there for 6 years, so explain to me then how the dominoes fell with the big shopping center. Were you part of that on 17?
No, that happened before I came. And I will tell you that in my experience, retail is going to go where retail knows that they can be successful. I'll tell you that just a crazy story, a little quick story. When I was in Martinsville and I did economic development, I got a call from Hampton Inn that wanted to come to Martinsville. And I said, oh, okay, well, good luck. Let me know if I can be of any help, because that's not considered economic development. Retail is not really considered economic development, and as far as the VEDP is concerned. Service retail is not considered economic development. But when I came, Fox Mill had already started. And yes, I mean, I've had to change the way I think, because I'm not doing industrial and I'm not doing, technology. And there's a lot of things that I've done before in my past that I'm not doing in Gloucester. But I've had to kind of change my way of thinking about what I need to do and what I should be doing. And I do contact companies, just like, we had a board of supervisor when I first got there that said, oh, somebody, just went to Roanoke and, went to this Aldi grocery store and, we've got to have this. And I thought, what is Aldi? So that's the first retailer that I've ever gone after. And I just kept throwing stuff. And the broker in North Carolina kept saying, you're not on my radar screen. You're not on my radar screen. I'm like, well, we've got a new housing development. We've got this. I sent him everything that was going on in Gloucester, including Fox Mill Center. And finally, after about a year and a half, the guy called me and he said, all right, stop it. I'm coming to Gloucester. So that's about as much as retail that I've ever gone after. But we were fortunate that this Mr. Kubicki that owns Fox Mill Center, to my understanding, he owned 2 McDonald's franchises in Gloucester, was living in Gloucester, born and raised, maybe, I don't know. And over the years, he slowly started buying up that land where Aldi and Ulta and, you know, Walmart and all of the Home Depot, all of that is. And he just kept buying it up as, you know, families, you know, deceased or, you know, just decided to sell. And I don't know how many acres he has now, but it's a huge, huge, huge tract of land. And I think he's got about 250, maybe 300 acres that is still undeveloped. And right now he's looking at a developer that wants to put 600 units, which would be apartments, townhouses, and single family homes on the property, so people could actually walk to restaurants and walk to, you know, the shopping area. But I mean, he's just, to me, he's just, I don't know, I've never met anybody quite like him that had such a vision that could do that big of a project, and it continues to grow in a rural community. So Gloucester was very fortunate that, you know, he had the vision and the wherewithal to do that. So, you know, they were fortunate in that part. And I mean, the housing, I think right now we've got what, 1,100, 17, maybe 17, 1,800 housing units, and that are being planned. So it may be more than that right now. I don't really keep up with the housing, but that's going to be a big deal too, because rooftops do bring in more retail. And I know I've been approached recently by a couple of big retailers, and you know, just trying to find parcels of land and stuff like that. But you know, it's just, and another big thing is we don't have a lot of property that's in zoned industrial. Just that little business park, the few acres that's left there where Cannon is, I mean, which is nothing. And then where there is some land that's industrial in northern part of Gloucester, they're saying that, you know, water and sewer will never get there. Well, a manufacturer is not going to go to land that doesn't have water and sewer. I mean, you got the 4-lane highway, but you don't have what companies are looking for. You need water and sewer.
So you would say that's 100%. That's like a non-starter for a lot of these people. If there's not water and sewer, or have you done like master?
Yes, because some of these companies, even though and broadband, I mean, I don't know your situation, but I mean, broadband is so important now, and especially since COVID, more people want to come to rural areas and telework or start their own business. I mean, home-based businesses has just exploded. And I mean, I keep saying that, oh, now's our time to shine. Now's our time to shine, because if we can get broadband all over Gloucester, then people want to move to areas like ours, like yours, like the whole region, because they feel safer here and they can work from home. I mean, there's so many jobs where people can work from home, but you got to have the internet. And what's your situation there in terms of broadband?
Terrible.
It's coming.
Yeah, for the past.
Yeah.
So back to that shopping center, was that if you build it, they will come?
District 2.
Well, the way that and again, I've learned a lot about retail just being in Gloucester, but no, in that shopping center, they have, Mr. Kubicki has Tallheimer that he works with to go out and market buildings. And if, for an example, and I don't know if he's done this all along, but I know now that he won't build anything until he has a commitment from, you know, Jersey Mike's or a tropical smoothie or, you know, anything like that. He did tell me the other day, because we stay in close contact, that he's got they're in negotiations right now with a big box store that would go beside a TJ Maxx, but he didn't divulge it, and I don't blame him. And he said there was another retailer that would go closer to that roundabout, but he's not, he don't build anything until he knows they're coming, and they sign a contract.
It's been incredible in that Gloucester area. Yeah, that's why I wondered, I mean, I'm talking about a cornfield and all.
I asked one question about a comment that was made. So you mentioned several times that the use of industrial parks and that we need industrial parks. So within the Middle Peninsula, I would like to know how many industrial parks we currently have and what their actual population rate is right now, because we're sitting with 2 within King William County that have not been at capacity since their inception. So I guess and one of them, you know, we can say that one doesn't have all of the infrastructure to support it with the one that's here in King William, but the one in West Point most definitely has natural gas. It has the infrastructure for water and sewer. They have had internet, yet they are not full. So I'm wondering, what is the real utility with industrial parks in today's economy? Because I see up in the Fredericksburg, Stafford area, a lot of companies are going out and purchasing their own land. They're not going inside of a park anymore. They're building their own complex and building their own campus. And that's what's occurring up there. So do we have the numbers on the Middle Peninsula, how many total industrial parks we have and what their population is right now?
No, are you asking? Okay, well, what I can do, again, I'm kind of a volunteer. Well, I am a volunteer here. I can send out an email to the MPA contact list and ask them about, I think what you're asking is the capacity of their existing parks, business or industrial. Okay.
Are we at capacity in any of those?
The distinction that I've been hearing is that it's one thing to have zoning, right? But what's required, finished sites ready to go with utilities. And that's
Right, but that's what I'm saying is in West Point, we do have that.
Yeah.
So, and we've had that in West Point for years, but it has not ever reached capacity.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm trying to figure out, you know, because again, we hear all the time here as far as where we need to put the money, where's the biggest bang for the buck. What I don't want to see is us say, okay, let's put money into the industrial park. We'll get HRSD to put in water and sewer. We'll get the infrastructure down there. And then we still don't really have a draw to get the occupancy up to 100% at the industrial park. And it sits vacant still.
Well, West Point has no development of buildings or anything there. Once you pass the pallet plant and one other little industry, there's no building, no, you know, water and sewer, internet, but there's no structure for anybody that comes.
No, but what I've been hearing from both of the briefers is that for the VEDP, that it simply has to have those things and be ready to go. I would assume inside of an industrial park that you've pretty much got a easy path in to put in an industrial business there, because it's zoned for it, it's ready for it,
The
all of that.
other speaker was saying that you need to have something for them to go into structures.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things that I guess we need to find out, and I'll be happy to do this, is number one, you know, the capacity of their buildings and business and industrial parks. What are the size of the sites that they have available? And what is the square footage of the buildings that they have available? Because I've had a couple of businesses just lately say, oh, I need a 40,000 square foot building with duct height doors, da, 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 for, distribution. And I'm like, we don't have that. Well, I'm sorry, we're not coming. I mean, if you don't have it, they're not going to come. It's just like, I've used this analogy for years. If you're moving somewhere or want to move somewhere, and there's a particular house that you're looking for that's got 5 bedrooms and 3 baths and da 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 da. If you go to that area and they don't have that house, you're not going to move there. You're going to move outside the area until you find that house. But I mean, it's the buildings are so important, and I wish we all had shell buildings, but too, I mean, I talked a county into building a shell building for me years ago. And I think it was 70,000 square feet that was expandable to 104. And I mean, the county took on the debt, and it was like, when's somebody coming? When is somebody coming? When is somebody coming? Well, it actually took, and we put too many bells and whistles into it, and we shouldn't have, but it took about 3 years later, and we finally got this company from France. That was exactly what they wanted. They didn't want the floor. We had to pay to take the floor up and put another floor thickness in, because they had to run some pipes and stuff underneath it. But I mean, that's cost of economic development. But I mean, it took 3 years. So, just because you build something, just, you never know. You never know. And, Jason mentioned the RIFA, the Regional Economic Financing Authority. We've got one, because Gloucester's part of 2 planning district commissions. We've got one in Hampton Roads that was just formed a year and a half ago, I think, it's like the region can decide, okay, let's put some money in and build a shell building in King William County, because you've got the land, or maybe it's in West Point. And then when the building is sold, then the communities, get a return on their investment. So that's a way to do it too. That may be something that, we all want to think about down the road, but no, I'll be happy to send out a note and find out, size of sites and buildings available.
Thank you. This has been informative. We will be back in touch. We've got some work ahead of us, and we're trying to figure out, what that thing is that we're going to chase.
Okay. Well, honestly, seriously, if I can help, or I mean, you all have county administrator has my contact information, Mr. Ashcroft, and also Steve Hudgens. So, if anything I can do to help, I mean, I've got a lot of experience, and with the VEDP, they're a great resource too. So, we'll all figure what we want to be when we grow up.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you all for having me. Have a good evening.
All right, so let's see. So we've got two more presentations. Kate Gibson from GoVirginia Region 6 is with us, I think.
It's actually Mr. Boyles and
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm Chip Boyles, filling in for Kate. I'm the executive director. Kate's actually in school tonight, so she couldn't be here, and I wouldn't write her an excuse. So you have me, and we also have our brand new program director, Ian Ginger, with us to tell you a little bit about GoVirginia. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. I'm working on a separate laptop. Let's see if we can do this. Okay. And
Nothing's happening yet.
probably not. It's looking.
That's the worst thing in the world.
Yeah. Every one of the platforms are different, and I've yet to master any single one of them. Let's see, I'm gonna try one other real. Okay. I'm not going to hold you up because I know you all are running a little bit late. Hopefully you do have the presentation. I know that we emailed it over, and I will go through it fairly quickly, but then try to answer questions for you the best that we can. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm fairly new to the Fredericksburg area in the region, of course, that we're all now living in. But I've been in Virginia about 8 years, but have been doing both regional and local government work, to include a lot of economic development work in the states of Maryland, Louisiana, South Carolina, and now Virginia. Currently working, of course, with the George Washington Regional Commission while we're centered out of Fredericksburg. We are the facilitators and administrators for the GoVirginia Region 6 program, the Mary Ball Washington GoVirginia Council. Notes here. GoVirginia 6 was created along with all 9 GoVirginia regions by the General Assembly in 2016. The regions are across the entire Commonwealth, and they have the mission is to create more higher paying jobs through incentive, collaboration, and primarily through out-of-state revenue, which helps to diversify and strengthen our economy, but allowing each region to define its own priorities and strategies. The George Washington Regional Commission was charged with administering the program as a support organization for Region 6 GoVirginia Council. The GoVirginia Council is made up of both public and private sector leaders. And we also have the direct staff, which is Ian, who's with us tonight. Also Kate Gibson, our deputy director, works on the GoVirginia program, as well as staff member Anne-Marie Klumpin. Anne-Marie's been with us a couple of years and has been most actively involved with GoVirginia. All 9 of the regional councils across the Commonwealth and their support organizations work very closely with VEDP, as you heard earlier tonight. We also work through the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development, which is the state's administrative arm for overseeing the GoVirginia program. They help carry out the mission. They help to administer and facilitate a statewide board that is the ultimate authority, just short of the General Assembly, for all of the GoVirginia grants and programs. That's a 24-member board and consists of both public and private sector, to include several General Assembly members. The state board, as I said, they have the final say on most of the grant applications that come through each of the 9 regions. The regions themselves, they help to initiate the grant programs, working with the partners throughout the entire region, and then recommend those to DHCD and ultimately to the State Council for final approval. Funds for this program are provided to encourage collaboration among the public, private sectors, governmental, as well as educational sectors. Since the beginning of GoVirginia, the educational sectors have really stepped up, that have included both higher ed and community college participation. This cooperation is intended to enhance private sector job growth and opportunities that align with the needs of each region, while focusing on a diversified economy away from the dependency on federal workforce and federal contracts out of DC. Regional Go Virginia programs are funded with state funds that are channeled to each region according to the size and their need. Local grants may either be for enhanced capacity building, which would be the planning efforts, as you all have been talking about tonight, to look at business or industrial sites, the soft type costs, just to determine what's feasible with a particular site. And then the second funding mechanism is to actually fund the implementation based on those capacity enhancing grants. So you do your feasibility studies, and then there are other grants that will help put the water, sewer infrastructure into the ground. As mentioned earlier, with VEDP, private and local matches are required for a number of these grant opportunities. And for Go Virginia, because the mission is to build partnerships, it does require at least two local governments to partner on any individual application. They can be adjoining local governments, or they could be local governments a state apart. And we do have a few of those that have been awarded. Some of those that are multi-regional, they vie for a statewide grant that is competitive across the state, but it's usually for very large projects and has a much larger budget than each of the regional grant programs do. And there are a couple of those, one that we're actually running out of Region 6 in Fredericksburg. Priority strategic areas include things like workforce training and credentialing. As I'm sure you all know, it's not enough just to create the workforce now, but it's also to have that workforce both credentialed and certified in whatever area they are. So Go Virginia does go to fund that. It really emphasizes on creating entrepreneurial opportunities through clustering of industries, and then the commercialization of the research concepts that are generated through these entrepreneurial opportunities. That's where the higher eds and the college communities are really becoming very, very active. And as been talked about much of tonight, a huge need in Virginia for site development for industry, especially the larger site development. Go Virginia, when you have at least two local governments partnering on it, can go to help with the site development. It was spoken of earlier about the RFAs. Within Region 6, we have one going right now that has 3 local governments, King George, Stafford, and one of our other counties that are partnering on developing industrial sites within the region. And they'll share in both the cost as well as the tax rewards from those industrial sites when they are fully implemented and filled. Go Virginia also works very, very closely with the, I'm sorry, I just said that, with VEDP on these efforts. We work with them in trying to get any industrial site from a lower tier level, which is the classifications VEDP uses, to a higher classification, trying to attract those industries that you all have been talking about. Some things that are eligible, some that are not eligible with Go Virginia projects. Go Virginia can fund cluster scale up, but what it can not fund are things like healthcare or quality of life, retail type things, as well as tourism right now. It can fund commercialization of entrepreneurial opportunities, but as mentioned earlier, we cannot provide direct incentives to private companies. Our funds usually go to the local governments, or they go to the educational institutions that are implementing a project. We can fund site and infrastructure development. We cannot fund scholarships and training for students. The other thing is the workforce and credentialing we can fund, but we cannot fund some infrastructure items such as transportation projects and broadband projects. those have their own funding sources throughout the state of Virginia, and GoVirginia is really not used for those two. Each region, and it's something I think would be important, and something that if you haven't had an opportunity to look at for our region, you know, I would highly recommend it as I hear you talking about going into a retreat, is that we develop a growth and diversification plan that focuses on the needs. GoVirginia funded for each of the 9 regions enough money for growth and diversification plans. They require an update every 2 years that help to define what clusters, what industries looking for within each region, and allowing those regions then to pursue those priorities according to how it fits their region the best. And so I really recommend, you know, taking a close look at that growth and diversification plan. It's available on our website, and I'm sure accessible to all of you. For those that aren't familiar with our region, Region 6, it's made up of 3 different planning district commissions: the George Washington region out of Fredericksburg, the Northern Neck, and the Middle Peninsula. Not only including King William, but all the way to Middlesex, Gloucester, Matthews, up to Stafford and Spotsylvania. So we've got a very, very large region as far as population, and a very diverse region. There is some kind of, you know, difference between Fredericksburg and then getting out to Matthews and Gloucester. So trying to meet the needs of a region that diverse is often very difficult for us, but it's one of the things that Ian is being charged with, is to really work hard in building partnerships with all of the local governments, just like you all. And as both of your speakers said earlier, we are more than happy to come in and help and participate and provide any kind of assistance that we can to help your economic development efforts. The priority growth clusters that we have that are identified in our growth and diversification plan include aquaculture and seafood industries, forestry and wood products, manufacturing, distribution and logistics. With I-95, that of course is really big for our region. Information and data centers, which are most prominent in the Fredericksburg and Stafford area, but then also the professional, scientific, and technical services that many of the higher ed and community colleges are participating in. Just kind of finally, some of the established goals to achieve our priority areas, including building that entrepreneurship ecosystem, creating the avenues so that young entrepreneurs, people just getting into business, they can have the assistance that they need so that they can focus on the industry that they have initiated, as well as the development of cooperative business sites. And of course, workforce development is always a priority. The staff at the George Washington Regional Commission, we work with all of the partner groups in making sure that the concepts that are presented to us, and quite often, not like a lot of grants where you just fill out the grant forms and submit those. Our staff works to hold the hands of those, because this is a learning and process. Is we work really closely to help determine, you know, you're going to have an application that more than likely will get funded. You're not just sitting around waiting for a no. And so we work with all of our economic development partners with our applicants to put together the most positive application we can. And we also work with the Department of Housing and Community Development to review those applications to give us their opinions as well. And so we work with that to try to get these projects. We do them across a number of different types of entities, and we are always looking for more. We have not been spending the money available to us in our region since the inception of the program. So we really need to get that pipeline of good projects increased for us. A very good example, just to give an idea of a successful project, is one we did in Westmoreland County, where we helped fund a welding training program. It aligned very well with our growth and diversification plan. It's a manufacturing field where welders are being trained to create a product within that manufacturing. It also aligns with the statewide project theme for manufacturing, as well as workforce development and training. Welders do create a higher paying job, higher than service industry. So it aligned there. And then it also created an opportunity where 2 different counties work together through the community college on this training program. It also, which is very important, is that the 2 localities help to contribute to provide the match money together, as well as having a very positive return on investment. For the little bit that was invested by the state and the local governments, the return by having more welders employed and the income they would bring into Virginia far outweighed the expenses that were incurred through the grant program. Applying for funding, it's usually just kind of a lot of hand holding, getting in touch with our staff, now Mr. Ginger, and just beginning to work through the process of getting the right information, the right partners together. And then we help those partners to put the application together. It goes before a local board made up of public-private leaders in the Fredericksburg area that are made up throughout the entire region. Once it's approved there, then it's reviewed by the Department of Housing and Community Development, and it's submitted to the statewide board for a final approval. Very, very seldom does a project get to that level to get turned down. They quite often are approved once they get that far. We've got money, we've got the people to help, and we certainly have the will to be working with all of the local governments within this 3 PDC area of Region 6, GoVirginia. And we look forward to working with you all. I've already had conversations with Mr. Ashcroft on a couple of projects. He's been attending our meetings, so he's getting a good feel of what's necessary to go after these funds. And we'll be glad to work with you all as you pursue this, and be glad to answer any questions for you.
I have, Chip, a couple questions. You mentioned projects in Fredericksburg and King George and Stafford area. You mentioned one in Westmoreland. What projects are down more out in our area?
Most of those, and I'm not familiar, and this may be something Ian, he's been spending a lot of time on, are in the, trying to think of, there are 2 or 3 in Westmoreland that have been done. But most of the interest has been out of the Fredericksburg area. And it's something we're trying to address. We need to get into the more rural areas.
How the turnaround on the application from the day you initiate it to the day you get some money? I mean, a year or 2?
No, gosh, no. I mean, the whole program has only been around since 2016, 2017, really getting started. It is a rolling application, and we do have, the only timelines we use are to try to time it so that the applications can get in front of the state board, because they only meet quarterly. But according to the project itself, an application can be put together easily in 6 months. Unless it's problems building the partnership. And that's where a lot of times, especially on site development, trying to get 2 or 3 local governments to agree on being partners, that's more of the delay than the application.
So you're saying 6 months from time the application is in to get the money. Is that right?
Yes, that's a very reasonable.
Okay.
Some have been turned around even quicker.
Okay.
Now, let me do say, this is a reimbursement type of grant. So, that's another thing. Once it's approved, the local governments or the universities can begin spending the money. And then the state reimburses those funds.
What is the size of dollars we're talking about? What is a typical?
We have them anywhere from $100,000 to one of the one statewide project we have, I think, is just over 2 million.
I mean, so we've had 2 projects within King William that actually identify King William as part of the participants. The first one was the Monkey Net, which is now done. That
Yep.
one was a GoVirginia request for $50,000 with a match of $83,000. King William EDA was actually, we put up money for that one as part of the matching funds. Another one was Middle Peninsula Alliance Site Characterization, which provided a site characterization study of up to 16 sites in the Middle Peninsula region. That Virginia request was for $85,000. The match was $5,200. So those are the 2 that are listed on the website that actually list King William as part of the localities participating.
Great.
Thank you for that.
I looked on the website, they actually have a fair amount of grants and they look relatively basic. No crazy asks or anything like that. And I see open for a bunch of them. So is that just constantly ongoing?
Yes, it's ongoing. It is ongoing, and I will say one of the things we are looking at, with any new program, a lot of our first funds were the soft type costs, the capacity building, and we're really trying to get to some real bricks and mortar right now, so that we can fund, which would even be higher dollar amounts.
So how do you define localities? You said 2 or more localities. What constitutes a locality?
A county or a city, and it's a question that came up just recently. A town within a county is not classified as 2 separate jurisdictions to partner. A city, such as Fredericksburg and Stafford, could partner. But a town in the county that it's within. Now, a town in a county that it's not in could partner, if that makes sense. But most of the projects are between counties.
So let's see, this has been informative. We've got more to go tonight. Is there any burning questions? No. Right, okay, thank you so much. We're trying to put it together, so.
Well, thank you for having us. We really want to get this information out. So if we can come back or participate in any of your efforts, just let us know.
Thank you so much.
Glad to. Thank you.
Yep, thanks, everybody.
All right, so we've got one more presentation to go, Hampton Road Sanitation District. So we got John Dano and Kendall Corey with us tonight. Let's see, John, I think you're muted. His mic appears to be muted. Is that us or is that him?
It's him. He says it's us.
Let's see.
He's a co-host, so he can unmute.
Yeah, we can see you, but we can't hear you.
Okay, I was given permission to unmute now, so
There it is.
thank you.
Beautiful.
Good. Good evening, board. Thanks for this opportunity. As was mentioned, my name's John J. Dano. I'm HRC's Chief of Planning and Analysis. And Mr. Ashcraft and Mr. Hudgens asked me to talk about HRC's plans on managing wastewater in King William County. So just a little background, HRSD is Southeast Virginia's regional wastewater treatment provider. We provide wastewater treatment to over 1.7 million people. Our service territory covers 5,000 square miles from King William County down through Virginia Beach and on across to the eastern shore of Virginia. What we do day in and day out is protect public health in the local waters by treating wastewater effectively. And our long-term vision is that future generations will inherit clean water and be able to keep it clean. And that means we do our job affordably. So HRSD owns and operates 2 treatment plants within King William County. One is in the Central Garage area and the other is in West Point. HRSD's treatment plant in West Point can treat 600,000 gallons of wastewater per day. In 2021, we averaged just under 500,000 gallons per day treated at the West Point plant. HRSD's treatment plant in the Central Garage area can treat 100,000 gallons per day. In 2021, the plant averaged 71,000 gallons per day wastewater treated. So we are currently making a significant investment in the Central Garage area. We're in the process of designing, and then we'll move to construction of a new wastewater treatment facility to replace the existing treatment plant that's near the end of its useful life in the Central Garage area. And the new treatment plant will be designed to treat up to 300,000 gallons per day, have the ability to expand to that capacity. The current engineer's opinion of probable cost for this new wastewater plant is $29 million. So based on the recently received preliminary engineering report, the design is scheduled to be complete next spring and construction is scheduled for completion in March of 2025. So HRSD is committed to providing wastewater treatment services for the county. The King William treatment plant capacity will be maxed out with build out of plans that we've already approved for development in the Central Garage area. HRSD is continuing to review and approve site plans in parallel with completing this King William treatment plant expansion project. However, any of those associated connections will require that the plant be complete before the actual physical connection for sewage treatment can be made. So we acknowledge the need for additional treatment capacity in Central Garage area, and we're doing everything we can to expedite the project. These are huge investments that take quite a bit of time to see through to completion. And there are certain conditions that are out of our control. Supply chain issues right now, limited contractor availability are 2 of the major risks that we're monitoring with all of our construction projects right now. That's what I wanted to share. And I understand our role in economic development, and I think it's probably good for you to understand the challenges it is to bring wastewater to bear for areas that aren't contiguous to an existing service area.
So I have a question, just to put it into context. We have 100,000 capacity is 100,000 gallons per day in Central Garage, 600,000 gallons per day in West Point. What does that equate to in like households or users to kind of get an establishment of what that actually means? Like 600,000 gallons sounds like an awful lot, but I know that West Point has 3,500 people that live there approximately, and we've got the plant that is there, the mill that is there also. So what exactly does that equate to? What's something that we could utilize to kind of put that into context?
A good number would be 100 gallons per person per day.
Okay.
Then the expansion to the central garage of waste treatment, can that handle additional building and running lines down 360, or have those studies already been done?
So it's about really the treatment capacity. You know, we need, if we can pump the sewage to the treatment plant, we just need the capacity to treat it. So we have a process in place for expanding service areas. And
I would just add that originally the plan was to expand that treatment from 1 to 200,000. But after looking at our growth projections and everything else, we had actually talked to them about what it would take to bring Commerce Park into the service area. They've gone ahead and bumped it all the way up to going from 1 to 300,000.
So does that 29 million include running?
No, that is
Okay.
only
That's just the
treatment
plant.
capacity.
That's not running any lines or anything.
No,
Okay.
because that's not really on their shoulders.
I have my good advocate, Steve, working for me there.
So
Thank
thank you for the update. Any other burning questions? Thank you for your time.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, so let's see. Treasurer's report.
Sure. I was gonna update you that, well, the only monies that have been spent out of the EDA funds have been for the Rkg project. And to date, we have paid 2 out of the 3 invoices. So that's totaling $15,000. We've got $7,500 left to pay them. They have sent us the invoice, but in discussion, they're going to be delivering us a final product, and understand that we would like to withhold payment until we receive the final product.
Refresh my memory, what's the total cost?
22.5 for this
22.5,
phase.
right, yeah.
Okay. And we're going to talk about this a little later. Okay. Unfinished business. Chairman's report. I look forward to having some discussion about the full year education forum visit. And, Chris, are you going to be able to pull up photos?
I think so.
Yeah. You want to?
I'll give you a brief
Let me just check. this.
brief report, I guess, while visiting. Back on March 21st, myself, Jay Brown, John Breeden, and Tracy Porter, we went to the Fauquier Educational Farm, and I got a tour that morning. It's a, we'll get pictures up of it, you'll see what. It's a one-man operation, as best I understand. A guy named Jim Hawkey Day is right there. He talked to us. He got a shed that he was in, and he's got a field, old farm site. I guess you'll see the farms in the background. But he's growing produce, and you'll see in the background, kids come there, everybody comes there, families, kids, what have you. And last year, I think he had a sign on the fence there that they gave out over 100,000 pounds of produce that they grew there. And I think they operate totally on grants. And they just grow any and everything there. And it's an educational farm. It's what the name says. And it's for really small groups of people. Your average house owner with mom and dad and the kids can come in and help him grow things, and the kids get to see how things grow and where food comes from. And he runs it all with the help of these people in the community. Any other pictures you got there? You see some of the farm there. I mean, there you go. That's back in March. He's getting ready. He's been planting some stuff planted. He's got a greenhouse where he plants. He's going to set out. Back, he had a group of people coming that later on that day to help him. And 100,000 pounds of produce that he gives time, you know, is very much from that little tract of land. There you go, that's his greenhouse with plants that he's started, seedlings from seed, and then he'll transplant them into the soil. Tomatoes, you name it, he's got it there. And as far as relating like something like that down here to King William, you know, it might be something that could go back behind the high school where you got your high school kids, got the kids right there to not only educate them, but provide opportunities for small folks, I call them, small people that just want to get in, maybe get into the, start the business of growing things and greenhouses and you just start a like Luke down here did. Small time groups coming in and they can help them get started.
Incubator kind of.
Yeah, right.
Because his greenhouse,
Right.
he's actually got kids from Howard Hill classes.
There's a greenhouse. See the old barn in the background? It was an old farm. And he's got, you see his tools of trade, so to speak, where he grades and plants and what have you. And that's what he does. He just harvests in the fall, plant in the spring, and people help him along the way. They not only learn how the things grow, but they help him.
Is it something you could visualize here?
I was trying to do that day. Yeah, I could visualize it up around, maybe letting the kids at school, you know, get into it, you know, maybe a project for the FFA or something like that. That's the way I can envision it. I really couldn't envision it in the middle of nowhere. I mean, I may be wrong, but I'd like to see it start where there's labor nearby. In case you build it, they don't come. You know what I'm saying? When I say that, people won't come to it. But you got the kids, in association with the schools, have something like that.
That's what Howard was looking at in the school, him and me talking about the greenhouse.
So what y'all,
Me and Howard had talked about EDA trying to help with the greenhouse at the
Yeah.
school because I'm working with one young kid now planting seeds in my greenhouse, and he's gotten good at it. And same thing, this is the opportunity for FFA actually to become financially stable, because a lot of other places are selling the plants. You know, once the plants like they just showed there, the other greenhouses that's in the schools areas, they're selling the plants.
to sell them?
Yeah, for the people, for anybody with garden.
Yeah,
And so it's a win-win situation.
yeah.
It's that planting the seed.
Yeah, I think it's a neat idea. My daughter went through the ag class in high school, and then my 4-H'er who lives across the street is currently in the ag class in the high school. And I think that kind of small scale, maybe CSA type of, or planting vegetables or starts in the greenhouse is a part that they don't see. Like, they see a lot of machinery and like large ag, but they don't see a lot of small
So
ag.
we done this last year in summer sneaker program through Palm Bureau,
Mhm.
teaching the kids how to plant seeds, the whole 9 yards. And I think it's something that we really, I don't know how we could fund it or help them, but I think it's something that's the starting point of giving back to our community. And
Yeah.
you know, what can develop from this? I mean, one kid might want to have a nursery. You don't never know.
Well, that's what it says. It's educational. We might get some kids interested
Yeah.
in doing that for, you know, as their lifetime job.
Is there, one of the terms that was used previously was cluster scale up, right? You know, in other words, like aggregate, you know, and so rather than just like a thing, is there a way that it could be expanded so that we could cluster scale up and have offshoots and other things?
You mean have one start, just theoretically have one start at the school and go up the road 3 or 4 miles? I mean,
Well, like, what's the
branch
mechanics?
out?
Like, what was the mechanics of that? Is it a private landowner? Does the county buy the land? Did you guys get into that?
That land, I think, was, I'm not sure who owned the land. I don't think the county did it.
It's a.
I think the state, part of the state owned it. So what?
That wasn't a nonprofit?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it was a nonprofit, wasn't it?
Yeah,
It was
he
like
said
10 acres or
he
something.
gets all his money from
Yeah.
grants.
So going to Howard, there's enough land behind the school to make a decent greenhouse.
So,
And other counties have started a greenhouse, then the following years it came with the nursery. On top of that, raising shrubs and bushes, and they've been real successful.
well, so there you go. So that's, but I mean, I guess what I'm trying the question I'm asking is, can we make it, is there an opportunity to make a bigger vision than that, or at least an opportunity to create something bigger? And, you know, so we got the education center. I mean, one of the things that's been pushed around is you know, like a meat processor, right? Right. That's not such a huge leap from that, you know, it's just a different ag, right? But
It's
it's,
a little more to that, because you have to, the meat process, it's gotta be inspected and all that.
it was just an example,
I'm
but I'm
just-
just saying, I mean, like, are there other things that we could bolt on if that grew
Not
like-
at school,
Okay.
not with that. I don't think that would be appropriate killing animals at school.
But getting back to my, like, do we go after landowners who would like to donate 7 acres in this general area? And then we create a nonprofit through the EDA?
So I think this is one of the things that we'll talk about at the retreat, but like, I think it's important that we agree on an objective, right? And get focused on doing one thing and hitting, you know, base hit, right?
Yeah.
Let's get a win. So it needs to be achievable. And I think we need to talk about at this retreat what that thing is and agree on that. And then once we agree on it, then we can start putting energy into making it happen. And it'd be really cool if it could be like the kernel that something, you know, that other things could grow around and kickstart things, you know, in some way. And I don't know how that works, but I mean, that would be
I
pretty
have
cool.
another question, but I'll direct it to Mr. Ashgate. I got some people asked me the other day about making a Christmas tree farm. What is anything involved into that, or?
This would have to be in the ag zoning, which is,
It's in
I
AR,
was gonna say, pretty,
but I was wondering, you
Prominent
know,
around the county.
is there anything out there that I don't think there is any Christmas tree farms in King William.
There was
Well,
one
will
in
Christmas
King
trees
William,
grow here?
but they closed.
That's the first thing I would ask.
I don't know.
That's what I don't know.
You
In
were
certain
talking about-
areas, only the trees will grow.
Well, according to Luke, it's the Charlie Brown tree, the long needle. If you want to do like the one from the western part of the state, the with blue spruce. Yeah, it said that needs the colder.
Right.
I didn't know. I just got asked a question.
I thought about
just
that.
have the person come in and talk with Sherry like any other business. We
Yeah,
sit
there
down and
was
talk
one
about
in
it.
King and Queen, but I think they ran out of trees. Like 3 or 4 years ago, and
Yeah.
whoever had decided to take over the farming hadn't planted more.
Well, they're just thrown at me. Somebody asked me a question, I could not answer.
Have them come up and talk to us.
Charlie, how big is it? What's the population of our school FFA right now? Like, is it large enough to support anything larger than a greenhouse? Because my concern is us looking at something and looking outside of that, saying, let's make it grow, when we may not, it may just need to be just a greenhouse and let them do that.
Well, this is a starting point, as Howard B was talking to, a point is, once you get this, you will get more people interested in FFA classes, and everything else will start growing. Instead of just being the little hands-on stuff, more of a broader spectrum. He thinks will really help produce more kids into the ag side of in the classrooms. That's what he's foreseeing, you know, right now it's the same stuff that you just go through 5 years, and this will be a more of a.
Right, and I get that, but I guess what I'm looking at is there's still a critical point that we won't grow any larger than that. This is our population that we will look at within a school. No matter how much we put into it, there's always a critical point of this is how many kids we can actually handle because we don't have the teacher resources and all of that for it and the support there. And quite honestly, we just don't have any more kids that are interested in that line of work. So my concern would be just looking at, have we touched base with the school system to see if they're willing to take that on? Because in the beginning, we would have the group of FFA that we've got. This may rely heavily on the teachers and the sponsors of FFA up front to run it for a while before the kids actually get involved. So do we have that support from the school to actually take that on?
I can find out.
Okay, that's all I'm asking.
Me with the superintendent, assistant superintendent, I have a good relationship because of what I do with Farm Bureau.
So I don't think there are any bad ideas when we're trying to figure out where we're going. And so the last thing we need to be doing is shutting down anything. And what I would like to encourage is just between now and when we get together, we're going to have this retreat, is that we think, I don't want to get unrealistic, right? None of us want to launch a project and then be a slave to try to make it, push it over, finish it, right? That's not fun, right? And so with that qualification, I mean, it's possible, right? That we could do something, start with something small, but plan it in a way that we could really start something, right? And so you think about, like, I'm just throwing stuff out trying to get the juices flowing. Well, there are only 2 24-hour vets in Richmond, right? In this region, really, right? So
We try to get low animal vets on here and to Virginia Tech, different programs.
Yeah.
But
let me keep going, right? So that's just a thought, right? Or maybe it's a cannery, or maybe we put together something, an opportunity where people can produce and do a value add to stuff that's grown, right?
Commercial kitchen that you can rent.
Right. Yeah. Right. I don't know what it is, but that's the first step is to do a little dreaming, and then figure out what that kernel is that we're going to start with, right? And I think,
I'm not looking to shut anything down, Lee, but I've been involved with this for quite a few years now. And what I don't want to see us do is go down a path where we're looking at 10 years down the road when we could simply focus on small victories, which is exactly what we need. So if we end up with just a greenhouse, and that's as far as it grows, because our ideas can change as we build that greenhouse into, you have different sections in that greenhouse that they grow shrubbery inside of there, and you don't have to expand. It's just another facet of that business.
yeah, other side of the coin.
Yeah.
He's talking about, you asked, because the different programs I've been in the school. 2/3 of the kids don't have no idea where food comes from.
it's terrible.
It comes from food line. Jeez.
But this is a way of getting it back to the kids. Because like last year, 2 years ago, we put a greenhouse at pool equipment. Farm Bureau did. That's what the teacher wanted. And Tiffany now is getting an incubator for some class for the kids to raise hatch eggs.
It's awesome. So what I think we're not gonna make any decisions here. And so I think if we can just get the juices flowing and think about what opportunities we may have, and when we get together, maybe we have more productive discussions. And Mr. Ashcraft has agreed to be the moderator and kind of help us move things along. That'll having a facilitator will be useful. So I think we could have a really productive session.
Just a little side note, that guy, Jim, his family was part of the Walton family on TV. just a side note. And I think the family was modeled after his family from Scotland, Virginia. Just a side
How
note.
about that, man? A small world.
I thought that was interesting. In fact, his name is Jim, and a lot of people call him Jimbo. Jimbo, yeah, what up?
Okay, so, let's see, you wanted to talk to us about the Rkg proposal? It's on the agenda anyway.
We were hopeful that Kyle was gonna be on
Okay.
with us tonight, but somewhere along the line that they got disconnected, but we did talk with him about moving into phase two. We'd like, as Steve has already said, we'd like to see the final product of phase one, I think, before we make a final decision on phase two, or before we could even make a recommendation to you. But all the stars could line up pretty easily once he has the first phase before us, and we've had a chance to review it, ask questions, and see how effective it is compared to what your expectations were when you contract. And there is money in the budget for phase two if we go down that road.
A big piece of it, I think, if I go back to where we were when we engaged them, was just trying to bring some focus and, some a rational approach to get us launched. And we're engaged in pretty good dialogue with them. So it's been helpful, if for no other reason, to help us, start having these productive discussions, I think. So, and I spent a few minutes sitting in the car before I walk in, just reading through the March 9th presentation, and it's worth scanning back through. There's some good stuff in there, and I think there's some bullets in there that may be helpful as we think about this retreat. There are some good suggestions in there. Let's see, so the survey, Mr. Ashcraft, can you talk to us about the survey?
Well, did you want to talk about the agenda first or the retreat? Just
Sure, yes.
I'll tell you, if you don't mind, I'm going to stand up so that people on Zoom can maybe hear me a little bit better. I would encourage all of you between now and maybe a couple of days before the retreat to look at the draft agenda, because I just took the liberty of laying out some things that I thought we probably would like to cover when we have this retreat. And some are very fundamental. If you read your bylaws, you really don't have a defined purpose. We need to define our purpose. And I have some suggestions as to what might lead you in that direction, but certainly your input would be helpful. That's why that's item number 4, some amendments to the bylaw would try to define the purpose. I'd like for us to develop some internal goals. We do have one meeting a month, as you know. Is that enough? Would you like to have different kinds of meetings? Would you like to have larger planning meetings a couple times a year? I think that's worth spending a couple minutes on, because as you know, when you have presentations like this and you've already had offers where people want to come in and want to sit with us and walk through very important steps of economic development, sometimes just one meeting a month isn't enough time. So I think we might need to be understanding your volunteer group, but still, if we want to meet success, we're going to have to invest the time. I think we all recognize that. Work groups are certainly something that we may want to consider. You pick 2 of you at a time, and I think we have 9 now. So I guess with Chris, would 3 be too many?
It can only be 2.
It can only be 2. And the reason it's only 2 is because then it doesn't have to be a published meeting. It doesn't have to be advertised and all that. But maybe when we define what projects we're going to be working on, it would be the chairman's prerogative to appoint 2 people to maybe spearhead those efforts and be responsible for coordinating that with the rest of the group. So instead of having one project the 9 people are working on. You might have 4 or 5 projects that 2 at a time are working on. So, and that way you can coordinate with staff, and I think that's a good model to at least try to get to. So we can talk again more about that on the 23rd. We're a little probably premature in this, but I like for some vision. Many EDAs have paid staff. They either have part-time staff, which is usually 1 person, or they have a full-time dedicated person. And sometimes that is in concert with economic development with the locality in which they participate in. And as I said at the outset, Steve and I are committed to do what we have to do to advance economic development. We've been spending probably as much of our time in that area as we have all the other things that are going on in the county right now. But down the road, you know, we may want to think about investing in another person, or maybe it's a couple part-time people, and not full-time, but that's just something to think about. You've already went on an excellent field trip. Are there other field trips that we ought to be making? You know, it's been talked about Gloucester tonight and how they build a retail from, what'd you say, a cornfield?
It's like a cornfield.
You know, is that, how did they do that? You know, we may need to take a trip and just ask some questions with some of the leaders up there. You know, Sherry is a wealth of information, and she would go with us. That's just one place. We may want to see some other things. So that's something to think about. And then this was a concept that came up 2 or 3 years ago, I understand. Brian briefed me on it at our last EDA meeting, or at least at the end of it. You know, if the EDA wants to become somewhat independent from the county when it comes to the financial, how do we get there? Well, do we want to get in the market a little bit of buying and selling property? Do we want to identify sites that we may want to either flip, or maybe we want to develop? And you know, it's not a hard concept, but it seemed to have met some resistance a couple, 3 years ago. Well, I think the Board of Supervisors that I talked with are willing to revisit that concept, and they'd be real anxious to hear your thoughts on that. And again, I'm not just stopping there. Those are my thoughts really quick on a piece of paper. If there's other internal goals that all 7 of you that are here, or seven of you that are here tonight, if you have other internal goals you want us to talk about at the retreat, send them to me. We're going to modify this agenda before we get there. We need to talk about our strengths and weaknesses. We all probably think we know what those are, but until we all get together and talk about them, and you see them, and you start to understand, that's why we don't have this, or that's why we're not doing that. So that needs to be an exercise that we spend a few minutes on the 23rd. I want to review the business data with you. How many business licenses we have? You'll be surprised. Maybe you won't. But we have a huge number, as it's already been said tonight, in home occupation. That's the new wave. And I think that's what we have to understand, that more people are probably going ahead in that direction as broadband expands, starting hopefully. Would be next year, Steve? Is that when it's coming? And then who are the top tax revenue generators in the county? You probably know. Concept, you know, obviously Nestle's and West Rock are probably the 2 biggest, but you know, you'd be surprised maybe what's less than that. And it may not even be a business. It may be property owners that are generating the real estate tax. So I want to share a little bit of that with you and get your understanding of it. I want you to understand your zoning maps. Where are business and industrial? Where do we have opportunity? You know, where do we have properties that can be marketed? Where there may be an opportunity to expand without interfering with the agriculture and the rural character of the county. I think that's something that you need to be thinking about as we move forward. And public utilities, we know most of that is on the west side, or excuse me, the Central Garage side, but at the same time, there may be other kinds of utilities that we need to be thinking of. I always consider now broadband a utility. It may not be defined as we know, water and sewer, but it is an important function of what we do. And I think we have to accept that and be prepared to expand that to every area of the county. We're gonna get, Brian, I promise, we're gonna get there. I know you're down, but we're gonna get there. What is the EDA's involvement in the comprehensive plan? You know, the Board of Supervisors is probably going to approve that plan at the end of May. It's already been approved by the planning commission. Well, I'm sorry, the public hearing has already been held. I think the planning commission is going to approve it. The first meeting, their meeting in May, and then it comes down to the Board of Supervisors at their meeting in May. Many of you have looked at it. You may have offered some comment on it. It's a plan. It's not a everything that we may all want or visualize for the county to be. But I really love the way that it takes baby steps to start doing the things that I think the county needs kickstarted on. And I heard you just say a little bit ago, let's take small projects, let's take small steps. Well, I think if we do some of the things that are in that plan, we're going to get there as well. And probably the heart of the matter is developing action strategies that we want to work on between now and December 31st. And I just listed a few there, and we've talked about those earlier, some of them. The Ag Education Project. If it's not something as lucrative as Spock here, maybe it's something as small as greenhouse. I don't know. We need to decide that. We need to see what our potential is. The chairman mentioned the processing plant. You know, it's an idea. We talk about it. You know, we don't have one. So if we don't have one, should we have one? You know, maybe the public wouldn't like it. Maybe they would like it. Anything you put in business, you create jobs. And that's another part of what we're trying to do. The farmer's market. I was heavily criticized, and I think by right, that when I put it in the budget for $250,000, I was looking that if we had to invest in a piece of property, if we had to renovate a building, or you know, I know Preston's barn was talked about. We don't know really what that would undertake. So you're going to see a modification of the budget in that we're not going to have that much money earmarked, but we are going to talk about, do we want to start small in a farmer's market, which would be a huge tent that would house about 10 or 15 or 20 tables underneath of it, and get farmers and other people who are interested in selling produce and other things started with the mindset of farmers market. And then we begin to grow after that, maybe over the next 2 or 3 years. And the Farm Bureau has always been a partner in farmers markets. So we scaled that back with the budget, but I think we can still get to the fundamental of the farmers market if that's what we want, to do. We talked about obtaining and selling property. To what level of participation could we, and I use the word could we, participate in the Commerce Park? I can't believe that anybody who sits here could be happy with the way that park is today. And the expectations of that park when it was first developed certainly hasn't panned out. There is some interest from outside developers to maybe come in and I would use the term rescue maybe some of the issues that are there. They're going to need some participation level, whether it be from the EDA or the county, and I would hope that they would not be one or the other. I would hope it would be both of you that would say, hey, the developer says, I'm going to do this, just like the VEDP guy just said. You do this, the county participates in this, and pretty soon we got a plan. But either way, I think that is still already a developed piece of property with thriving businesses. It has potential. If you try to build that from scratch, it would be millions and millions of dollars, and you already have the core of it there. We just need to finish it. It was started in 2004. I don't know when I talked to you earlier when I gave my remarks to you in December. You guys are the Economic Development Board authority. You're the ones that will always be in the middle. But do you like pulling other people in an advisory capacity only? I've seen successes with business roundtables. They don't meet every month. They might meet every other month. They only meet for a couple of hours. But these are people that are paying taxes in the county. These are people that have invested. They have had a vision for their business and they've been able to thrive. And you meet with them every other month and you just let them brainstorm, let them break, let them tell you how the real world is out there. Because sometimes we think we know about businesses. A lot of times maybe we don't. So that might be something that you might want to consider. These are all suggestions. We talked about the phase 2 of Rkg, hosting the business fair. That's an easy thing for us to put together, and I think we ought to do that maybe in the fall. You know, we have numerous businesses that would like to come and show off. They need workers, and I'm talking about from restaurants to the Nestle's plant. You know, when we were out there, they're always looking for workers. So we may want to hold a business fair maybe sometime in the fall at a location that would be really good for people to want to attend. We talked earlier about the need for a development of an industrial park. Do we need one? If we need one, I don't know if we need one now or not. That might be a long range goal. But you heard what they said. You got to have sites. You got to have infrastructure. You got to have workers. How do we accomplish all that? Just got to be thinking of it. And then I'll add the 24-hour veterinarian services. I think that's great. And I'll add the cannery to our discussion list. So I'm asking you, if you have other things that you would like to have talked about on that Saturday that we would consider action strategies, I would encourage you to send me a note and let me add those to the list. But that was just me thinking out loud from hearing from conversations from you, from local business leaders that I've been sitting with, certainly our board of supervisors, everybody as we move forward. So 4 hours, 4 hours at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. I mean, I can just see people already sleeping. But you know what? If we handle this right, it'll go fast. It will. It'll go fast. And we'll get a lot done. It should be great. We'll get a lot done. So that's that, Mr. Chairman. Now, as far as the survey, I don't know if you want to talk about it that much tonight. We had 7 of the 9 members participate. And why we wanted the survey was to kind of, again, get your inner thoughts on what you're thinking about as you're a member moving forward of this authority. And we asked the basic questions that you would have on a survey. We didn't dive too deep on philosophies or whether we should have this or that, but we did. We asked very simple questions. And, the first one was, do you think the program has been successful in the last 5 years by this body? And we have, I think, some new folks that maybe the unsure was probably something that was a logical answer. But the other 3 said no. If you notice, there's not anybody on this board who took the survey that said yes. Well, my goal is that if we take a survey again in 6 months, that you would have a whole different percentage on that, because you're too important to the success of the county to not have the success in the survey. So, number 2, which of the following economic development functions are most important to you individually? And I think that they asked you to choose 3. You can see on that question who had the most. And obviously, common sense, when recruiting new businesses, that's pretty basic. But then you had some others that were in there. What assets does a county have to build on in economic development? You see that's kind of divided there. Sites ready for development and the valuable workforce look to be what we want to get to. What are the biggest challenges? Lack of prepared sites and water and sewer capacity. We just heard that we're going to be stymied a little bit until we get that wastewater plant completed in 25. So which of the following outcomes in economic development is most important to you? Yeah. Kind of surprisingly, most of you said creating a positive brand image. And you know what? I don't think, in talking to a lot of my colleagues from outside of Kingwood, we don't have a bad image. You may have a bad image of yourself sometimes that, you know, we all can't agree on where we're supposed to go. But, you know, Nestle's does a lot to put you on the map. And West Rock has been putting on the map for a long time. And then you just start adding some of the other things that are happening. I had a lady, and they mentioned her name tonight, Liz Bobo. She said that, and she's very familiar with the Northern Neck and the Middle Peninsula. I mean, she has been around here for years. She lives in Centerville, I believe. She said to us that King William County has more potential today than any other locality in any of the Northern Neck or the Middle Peninsula. And she bases that on all the common sense factors. You know, roadways, expanding utilities. We have some land that we can develop. We got a nice mix going with housing. We need certainly some pieces there of retail and service industries that we're lacking. Drugstores always keep coming up. But she said other places are just kind of existing. And you know what? If you look at the census, there's a lot of truth to that. We grew 12%, 12%. I don't think you see a lot. You know, a lot of them didn't do that. They just kind of held on, and we were talking earlier, some lost population. So we stand to be in a good position on that. Which of the following outcomes of economic development is most important? Again, we talked about that. What's the greatest threat to the economic future of the county? And this is where we start talking about, and some of you gave some very good opinions. This was question 6, and we have 4 pages of answers to that. Page 7, what is the most important first step to take? We all may kind of disagree on what should be the first step. But you know what I like more than anything is everybody agrees we need to take the first step. Well, you know, and that's the first step towards getting to where you want to go. So I'll let you read the digest those. If anybody has not taken the survey, I'd encourage you to do it. I think Chris has the list of who has and who hasn't. We can still add those results to the list, and I think it'll be good if all 9 members moving forward looked at it. So I'm sorry, Chris, I didn't use the PowerPoint, and we may be able to use it again come the retreat. I just wanted to go through it pretty quickly.
This is great.
So that's kind of where we are with that, Mr. Chairman.
Well, if nobody said it recently, we very much appreciate your leadership and your help.
Glad to do it.
And
It's exciting. I mean, you don't know.
Fortunate to have.
There's just something to do all the time. I mean, it's really good. It's really good. But it just takes people like you and volunteers and interested folks in the community just to you know, find the direction, and it's staff's responsibility to drive the train for it.
We're just trying to say thank you.
That's what I appreciate. I'll take it. Steve is director with.
Okay, so let's see, is there anything else that we need to talk about? I guess we've got the public comment period. Do you have any public comments? No, okay. Anything else? Going over on my headlines here. Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
And you want to adjourn, Mr. Chairman, to your retreat to 9 a.m. on April the 21st.
Don't adjourn.
Yeah, do adjourn to that. Otherwise, you would be adjourning to your next regular meeting, which would be in.
That's an important detail. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Just want to say welcome to our 2 new members, Sarah and Tiffany. Welcome aboard.
Okay.
We need to rechange the motion.
Yeah, motion to adjourn until 09 on April 23rd, 2022.
All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There it is, motion passes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate all of you.
Need a incubator.
No, I read the form here.